أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نصروا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم كالذين نصروا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا خاشعا متصديا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله هو الله هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن من المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون صدق الله العظيم العظيم صلوات محمدي.
Thank you for that beautiful recitation. Next, I would like to call on Sister Fatima Raza to come up for poetry. Let us welcome her with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
A Shaheed once said, before becoming a martyr, you must first live like a martyr. This poem is inspired from this quote. We can start with the salawat. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد O Allah, make me live the life of Muhammad and his family. وَمَمَاتِي مَمَاتَ مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ Muhammad. And make me die the death of Muhammad and his family. To live the life of a shaheed, what does this mean? How did they succeed? How were their souls freed? My mind wanders off 1400 years ago, or Karbala, I want to know. Tell me the secret to a martyr's life. How did they bear witness and arise? Karbala's blessed sands replied, Wilaya. Wilaya is how their souls flied. Wilaya's light each martyr's heart held, for this is the reason they stayed until the end. Unlike those who dispersed, leaving our Imam alone and with thirst. Wilaya enamored their hearts. From worldly gain, their beings would depart. Sacrifice is what they yearned. Living forever is what they earned. Wilaya. Wilaya they truly understand, for nothing in the way would stand from following their Imam's command. For Qasim, death was sweeter than honey. For Abbas, 2 hands he'd give. For Hur, from his ego he became free. Was this not all Wilaya? And through Wilaya's beauty, they were brought to the ultimate love of the Almighty One above. For as Hussein alone did stand on Karbala's blessed sands, he was immersed in none but love in his beloved one. A martyr's secret is this servitude. For nothing else will they pursue, all else becomes extinguished, except this divine wish. Allahumma ja'al mahyaya mahya Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. O Allah, make me live the life of Muhammad and his family. Who lives such a life today? Who lives a martyr's way? Who do I think of today? What did Karbala's blessed sands teach me from that day? I see the oppressed in their resistance. Servitude towards God and his chosen awliya illuminate their existence. I see the martyrs who gave on the path of Al-Quds. Walaya today, do they preserve towards the Imam today? Do they serve? For the life of living like Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad is nothing more than walaya to the Imam and his chosen ones. Not a heart of just love, for a heart of just love was kufa. Not a heart of just love, but a heart that yearns to sacrifice for the one above. This is what it means to be a shaheed. This is what it means to be a shaheed. To align and follow the wali's lead, to give all when truth's revival is needed, to give all when truth's revival is needed. Salawat.
Thank you so much. And just a few announcements before I call on Sheikh. So number one, if you would like to join the WhatsApp group and be informed about the programs that are happening this month and throughout the year, please reach out to one of the organizers or the volunteers, and inshallah they will add you to the group chat. And number two, please refrain from eating in the basement or anywhere in the center where it is prohibited. And if you do eat, please clean up after yourselves. And number three, please extend your hand and donate generously so we can continue serving you and programs like this throughout the year. We have the baskets placed at the door of the entry. And if you would like to donate, please go for it. And if you would like to sponsor Majlis, you can also contact one of the volunteers to help you, inshallah, sponsor the Majlis. And we have a request from the ladies' side that please limit entry and exit during the Majlis and minimize disturbance. So everybody who is leaving and coming in, please limit your movement so it's easier for us and the people to concentrate on the Majlis. And inshallah, tomorrow there's going to be a book launch event by Sheikh Jaffer, and inshallah, he will enlighten us about it tomorrow. And for the timing, we will update you on the WhatsApp group chat. Without further ado, I would like to call upon Hujjat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, Sheikh Jaffer Larak. Let us welcome him with 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
What do you think? You happy? Not happy? You happy? Can I ask the brothers to move as far to this side as possible so that we don't block the entrance, and that anyone who wants to come in shortly, they have enough space to be able to do so, inshallah. For the love of the Holy Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. We will need 3 sets of ayat tonight, inshallah. Please open your Qur'ans to the following chapters. Chapter number 18, Surat Al-Kahf, from verse number 93 to 98 or 99. Then chapter number 21, Surat Al-Anbiya, verses 96 and 97. So that's Surat Al-Kahf from verse number 93 onwards, Surat Al-Anbiya, verse number 96 onwards, and then chapter number 3, Surat Al-Imran, from verse 110 onwards. We will also need you to open a couple of verses of the Bible as well. So if you go to Google and into the search engine type in BibleGateway.com, the first thing you will need is Ezekiel 38. So BibleGateway.com, Ezekiel 38, and thereafter another search, BibleGateway.com, Psalm 83. So Psalm is Psalm 83. Everybody has those, inshallah? Good, inshallah. Does anyone need me to repeat any of those? Or you all have them? Repeat? Which one shall I repeat? The Bible ones? So BibleGateway.com, Ezekiel 38, and then another search engine, BibleGateway.com, Psalm 83. For the love of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And for the hastening of the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ليسوا سواء من أهل الكتاب أمة قائمة يتلون آيات الله آناء الليل وهم يسجدون يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويسارعون في الخيرات وأولئك من الصالحين. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. awaited savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا أبي عبد الله الحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. To understand the way in which other nations, other faiths and sects look at not only the Muslim community, but particularly the Shi'i community, is a very important aspect of our attempts to be able to forge a better world. If other nations, other faiths and other sects look at the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in a positive way, as a positive source of light and guidance in this world, then it becomes easier for us to be able to work coherently, cohesively together towards the ultimate aims that Islam has set for us. Whereas, if other nations, faiths and sects look at the religion of Islam, or indeed the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, as antagonistic to them, or God forbid as terrorism, or something that actually that their own scriptures consider to be on the side of Satan, then it becomes very difficult for us to be able to find a medium between us and to forge a better world together. This can be understood at both the levels of the masses as well as at the level of the individual. How often have you heard that many people will accuse or blame Islam as a religion, but then due to your own good akhlaq and your own good interactions, they will look at the religion of Islam differently, or at least say that you are one of the good ones. Have you heard of that sort of case? Many a time in my own interactions with people, they will look at Islam as blameworthy for something, or Islam as the enemy within, but the Muslim themselves is actually good. It becomes very hard to be able to reconcile that, doesn't it? Why do I hate Islam, whereas I find Muslims to be good people? One of the great challenges that we have is that from amongst the scriptures of both our Christian friends as well as our Judaic friends, many of them are forced to be able to see Islam not only as antagonistic or antithetical to their own teachings, but actually that in their eschatology and in their end times theology, they believe Islam is actually the source of enmity on earth and is actually going to be with Satan and the satanic forces at the end times. This is in the scriptures, as I will show you shortly. What if I went a step further and I said to you, not only within many of the Christian and Judaic circles is it Islam is considered to be at the end times to be the problem, but specifically the Shia are the ones who will be the enemies of God at the end of time, and that this is apparently mentioned within the texts. If we want to be able to forge a better world, firstly, we need to know about where these schisms and where these tensions come from between the three great Abrahamic faiths. But also, we need to be able to think about whether there is a means of overcoming some of these tensions between these sets of scriptures. We will never be able to forge a better world together if both sides consider each other as the enemy at the end times. Because everything that leads up to that will ultimately place us within that scope. For example, if I mention to you that within the tradition that it is the state of Israel that is an enemy to mankind, immediately the way in which we look at that state is through that lens. But then what if it's flipped? What if I was to tell you that from their own scriptures that they actually see the present day Shi'a Ithna in that very same light, that actually we are on the side of the Antichrist, and as a result we are perpetually the enemy of those people. How do we deal with this? What I want to be able to show you tonight, inshallah, from the Quran and from the Bible and from other different textual resources, is how the evangelical Christians and the Zionist Jews are coming to see the Shi'a Ithna Ashari school of thought. And that is specifically that at the end times, it is the Shi'a community that is on the side of the Antichrist. Moreover, there is a split between the two. They may both see that the Shi'a community is inherently theologically problematic, but actually from the perspective of the evangelical Christians, they believe that they need to start a war between Muslims and Jews in order to be able to bring about the coming of Christ and the rapture as well. This is important not only from a theological perspective, but you can see it bleeds into everything that we do in the modern day world. These ideologies and belief systems become part and parcel of people's policy making. When they try to sponsor politicians, and when military ideas are created, or when the way in which people see the restructuring of the world, the same way me and you see the world through the lens of our Quran and Sunnah, the same way we understand the world through the lens of our aqa'id, you have to understand so do other faiths as well. The fact that some of the faiths and some of the sects specifically place the Shia as the problem, it is necessary, number one, for you to know what they say, and number two, for us to be able to think about how we navigate that. It may be that we don't have all the answers today, tonight, from this pulpit. It may be that you have to have further discussions with yourselves, further discussions with your other friends from amongst the churches, from amongst the synagogues. There needs to be discussion convened. And to be honest with you, no center like Al-Khou'i Center in New York has the capacity, no other center like Al-Khou'i Center in New York would have the capacity to be able to do that, because of where you are situated, because of your experience with the tradition. There is much scope for you to be able to think about this particular challenge that is at hand. If we are able to be aware of this challenge, then it gives us some opportunity to start thinking about how we navigate this particular challenge together, inshallah. Please open your Qur'ans to Surah Al-Kahf, chapter number 18 of the Holy Quran, from verse number 93 onward. This sequence of verses refer to the matter of Gog and Magog, or in our own scriptures called Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Ya'juj and Ma'juj are one of four entities that are said to rise at the end of times and participate in the great war between good and evil. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, or Gog and Magog in their English translations, are mentioned within the Old Testament, are believed in by both Christians and Jews and Muslims. But all three have slightly different interpretations as to whom Gog and Magog are and the outcomes of Gog and Magog. Amongst the four that are due to come at the end of time is Gog and Magog, Dajjal, Isa alayhi salam, and the awaited savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi, ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-sharif. From our humble perspective, three of these, of course, are guaranteed to come. Scripturally, they are necessary for the end times. Which one is not? Dajjal. Dajjal is said to come at the end of times, and whatever description he comes with, but it's not a necessity or a guarantee. It is something that is mentioned within the books of Ahadith. The other three, however, Gog and Magog, Isa alayhi salam, and Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, of course, are guaranteed, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, to come at the end of time. Gog and Magog are one of three interpretations. Either Gog and Magog are two individuals, or it is a tribe or two tribes, or it is a geographical location. We'll talk about each of these shortly, inshallah. So immediately when I say Gog and Magog, or Yajuj and Majuj, you should have in your mind that it is either an individual, a nation, or a geographical location. All three Abrahamic faiths believe Gog and Magog come at the end of time. The problem is that each says that Gog and Magog is the other. Gog and Magog sides with whom? The Antichrist. He's on one side. And then on the other side, you have Prophet Isa alayhi salam and the awaited savior of humanity. These two, of course, clash. So, of course, if you have, for example, our Jewish friends thinking we are Gog and Magog, it means what? That we are siding with the Antichrist. Similarly, if our Christian friends believe that we are Gog and Magog, we are siding with the Antichrist. And similarly, if we claim that they are Gog and Magog, that means they are siding with the Antichrist. It's all well when it becomes scriptural discussion, but when it becomes very real and people use these to be able to create policy for the United States of America, or when evangelical Christians are telling people that the Shia are Gog and Magog, or when it becomes real tomorrow and the Imam comes and Gog and Magog comes, this is where real destruction comes about, doesn't it? Many of you may not even have known who Gog and Magog are before tonight's discussion. Maybe you did. And many of you will not even have known that Christian evangelicals in this country and Zionist Jews in this country believe you, the Shi'a Ithna to be Gog and Magog. We're not doing this discussion in order to pit ideas against one another so that you dislike one group or another, or it becomes a means of violence between one another. Na'udhu billah. No, not at all. This is a theological discussion and more about coming together and finding a way to resolve this tension as opposed to actually finding a way of making it split between us. Before we look at these ayat, please brothers, you're blocking the entrance. Come on, people cannot come in. This is every night we're asking everyone just to move to the middle or move across. We shouldn't have to ask this every single night. Brother, you're literally blocking the entrance and exit. For the love of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. In these verses of Surah Al-Kahf is the first mention of Yajuj and Majuj within the Holy Quran. The second will be the verses that we'll come to shortly after from Surah Al-Anbiya. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 18, Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 93 onwards. The sequence of verses explain that Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam that Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam comes across a people, and this people ask him for help because Gog and Magog are creating fasad in the world. And Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam builds a dam or a great wall and locks Gog and Magog behind this particular wall. Have a read of these verses with me. Verse number 93. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. Until when he, Dhul Qarnayn, reached a place between two mountains, he found on that side of them a people who could not speak with him. It's a different language. So he comes across a people, and they now need to communicate to Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam. If they can't speak the same language, they communicate in some other form, maybe with some signs or maybe some drawings or something of the case. What is important to note for this part of the verse is that they came between two mountains. حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين. So this seemingly refers to a geographical location. Which location? We will talk about it shortly, inshallah. There is also a community, a qawm, that communicates with Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam. Verse number 94. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. They said, O Dhul Qarnayn. Now in the previous ayah it says that they could not speak with one another. They could not communicate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is not quoting them in their words. He is explaining the communication that was made between Dhul Qarnayn and this tribe. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. This is not an ordinary thing. Surely Gog and Magog make mischief in the land. فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. Shall we pay you a tribute? We, the community, can we pay you something? And then with that, it's a condition that you raise a barrier between us and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. They are mufsidun fil ard. We want you to create a barrier between us and them, but we will pay you to be able to do this. Verse number 95. قال ما مكني في ربي خير فأعينني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. He said, that which my Lord has given to me is better. I don't need your payment. I'm not looking for any payment for this. Therefore, all I want is for you to provide the workers, and then I will make this fortified barrier between you and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Verse number 96. آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين. Bring me blocks of iron, until when he had filled up the space between the two mountains, he said, blow until when he had made fire, bring me molten brass that I may pour it over it. It describes that a dam or a gate of some kind was made between these two mountains, locking Ya'juj and Ma'juj in and stopping their ability to cause fasad fil ard. Verse number 97. فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا. So they were not able to scale it. Ya'juj and Ma'juj were unable to overcome that large gate or that dam that blocked them in. Nor were they even able to make a hole or penetrate inside that gate, meaning they couldn't go over it, they couldn't go under it, they couldn't go through it. Verse number 98. قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam says, blocking off Ya'juj and Ma'juj is a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that is a blessing from Allah, a mercy, keeping this evil away from people in the world. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا. Now comes the promise that one day Ya'juj and Ma'juj at the end of times will be let free. This is something that the Quran predicts as a prophecy. But when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, He will make that barrier level with the ground. It will fall down. And the promise of my Lord is ever true. Verse number 99. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ. And on that day, when that barrier falls down, we will leave a part of them in conflict with another. They will come forth. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ. Yamuj from the root word moj. Moj in the Arabic language is a wave. Yamuj means or suggests that Ya'juj and Ma'juj will come like waves. They will bring this fasad fil ard in waves. Whatever that means, you can see the trouble that they're going to cause. وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَجَمَعْنَاهُمْ جَمْعًا. We will gather them all together. Okay. Some points of interest with these verses. Number one, Ya'juj and Ma'juj create fasad fil ard. They are mufsidun fil ard. The ahadith suggest that their fasad then, when Dhul Qarnayn alayhi salam blocked them, was of a particular type of fasad. Anyone know? Anyone guess what type of fasad they used to create? Very nice. Pillage, rob, kill. Very good. Anything else? Kidnap. Yes. You could just list every type of facade and probably it would count. The hadith specifies that they used to steal food and they used to destroy crops and lands which would create crops. Very interesting. So the Quran calls them mufsidun fil ard. But the hadith is very specific as to what type of facade they used to do. They would destroy other people's food and crops. The second interesting thing is the location. Where was it? Between Baina Saddain, between two mountains. Historians differ. Who is Dhul Qarnayn according to popular opinion? Alexander the Great. And when did Alexander the Great come? Which era? Which century? Pop quiz. Ahsant. 300 BC. So 300 years before Christ alayhi salam. The first recorded, what has reached us, the first recorded explanation of Dhul Qarnayn's travels and where this incident came was from a Roman Jew some 30 to 100 years after Christ. So let us say up to 400 years after Dhul Qarnayn. This is the earliest recorded geographical explanation of where this event takes place. According to that particular historian, that event takes place on the border between modern-day Russia and Georgia. That two set of mountains, until today, can still be visited. It is between where? Russia and modern-day Georgia. Now, just as an FYI, the reason as to why it is still visited and is popular until today is because when many Ukrainians and Russians wanted to flee the current war, they would actually go through that mountainous pass. So it is still until today used. You should ask the question, is there a great dam or is there a great wall that is built there? No. It doesn't appear to be so. Anyway, according to the earliest resources that we have, that is the location of that incident of where Ya'juj and Ma'juj have been locked up. Anyway. What is most important here for us is that in the Quran is the prophecy that at the end times, Ya'juj and Ma'juj will be freed from that barrier. Again, we have to ask, is it a person? Is it a nation? Or is it a geographical location? Well, this comes into play. Because if it is a nation or a tribe, then we have to find out who it is. If it's a geographical location, then the geography stays the same. But over a period of time, nations come and go, don't they? So that could have a potential effect depending on the geographical location. So this is this first set of verses. Please turn to Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter number 21 of the Holy Quran. Which ayah did we say? 96. Jazakumullah khair. 96 and 97. Everybody has the ayah? Or should I give more time? More time? Got it? Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. حتى إذا فتحت يأجوج ومأجوج وهم من كل حدب ينسلون. When Gog and Magog are let loose. So now this is following on from the previous set of verses, which was a prediction. Now it's talking about when the prediction occurs, what's going to happen. When they are let loose, إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ هَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. They shall break forth from that barrier and come down from every elevated place. In the Arabic language, يَنْسِلُون is like يَخْرُجُون. They will come out, they will come forth. So in the previous ayah, it said what? That they will come يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ, in waves. In this verse, it says that they will be let forth. In either case, the verse is telling us that there is a problem when they come. That previously they were used to doing fasad fil ard. What type of fasad? Ahsant. It's possible, if the hadith is correct, it suggests that that's their nature. That's what they're like. Now it becomes very interesting because at the end of time, we have many, many ahadith that tell us that there will be great famine. People will be going hungry, starving. This is mentioned explicitly within the signs, the minor signs of the end of time, the circumstances of the end of time. Think about this very carefully. If you already have great famine, and then Ya'juj and Ma'juj come, and what is their MO? That they steal food, that they burn crops from other people. Can you see the type of facade that can be expected from them at the end of times? This is what we understand from these traditions, putting them together. Return to the ayah. حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ وَاقْتَرَبَ الْوَعْدُ الْحَقُّ, and the true promise shall draw close. It's coming. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. Then lo, the eyes of those who disbelieve shall be fixed open. Woe to us, they will say. Surely we were in a state of heedlessness as to this. Nay, surely we were unjust. The emphasis here is that in the Quran, Ya'juj and Ma'juj exist. The type of facade that they do is suggested, and that they are definite signs of the end of time. Whose side are they on? They are on the side of Dajjal. According to some traditions, Ya'juj and Ma'juj will come after the 12th Imam's appearance. According to some, they will come with Dajjal's appearance. But in either case, they are not on the side of me and you. They are the enemy. We do not have any more information than this. It's a very important point I'm going to make in passing. And I know there are many brothers, especially and sisters here, who are students of Islam. Many of the ulama have fantastical explanations as to whom Ya'juj and Ma'juj are. I'm not kidding you when I tell you some ulama believe Ya'juj and Ma'juj are aliens. Our senior scholars tell us that there is a theological principle called tawaqquf, that we cannot make things up that we don't know about. If our traditions don't go any further and do not give us certainty on anything more, we don't try to make guesses and estimations beyond that. So here, I'm going to stop from the Islamic perspective. Here, I stop from the Shi'i perspective, and I don't explain any more. Because if there was anything detailed with surety that I could offer you, I would offer it to you. But it suffices us to know that these are the qualities of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and that's how you may want to keep an eye out for them in the end times. Khalas. The issue is that when you look within the texts of our friends from the Christian and Judaic faiths, their understanding of Ya'juj and Ma'juj is that they are not only Muslims, but a certain type of Muslim. And that certain type of Muslim arguably is you and me, from the Shi'a Ithna Ashari school of thought. That means the way in which some evangelical Christians and some Zionist Jews look at us is through a theological lens that we are the enemies of God. And if they can identify Ya'juj and Ma'juj either as a nation or as a geographical location, then they also become the enemies of God. Now, if you are an evangelical Christian in this community, in this country, of which there is a huge proportion with a huge finance behind them that are constantly providing senators and congressmen and leaders to the country that then actually create policy for this country, you have to understand the link that is occurring. You cannot be blind to that link. If, as you know, there are policies that are being created by Zionist lobbies and by AIPAC, and if they are providing funding for congressmen and women and for senators, and these become laws and these become policies, then again understand that if they see you as Ya'juj and Ma'juj, understand the way in which that they are speaking about you and the way in which they are creating policy towards you. Cannot be blind to this. So where does this appear to come? I can't have time to give you all the evidences, so I'll give you the most important and show you the way in which these traditions speak and the way in which they interpret these traditions. Please go back to your search engines. I asked you to search BibleGateway.com, Ezekiel what? 38. Please open BibleGateway.com, Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38 addresses the issue that the believers in the Bible have to consider Gog and Magog as the enemies of Allah, as the enemies of God. And then it goes further to actually state whom those people are, whom Gog and Magog are. Are you ready to read it with me? Have you ever heard of this? Hands up. How many of you know of this already? My young brother there. Anyone else from the sisters? This is all new for you? Ready to read it? Everyone should be having exactly the same version as me. New International Version, okay? The Lord's great victory over the nations. Remember, if you're an evangelical Christian or if you're a Zionist Jew, remember as you read this, you believe in this. The same way me and you believe in the Quran and Sunnah, they will believe in these texts. 38. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog. The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Gog, chief of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around. I will put hooks in your jaws and bring you out with your whole army, all your horses, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Do you understand what's being said? Do you understand it? What's being said is, you are supposed to say, if you believe in the scripture, you are supposed to say, I will fight you. This is a religious war. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, bring you out with your army, your horses, your horsemen, fully armed. Basically, the people on the side of God are supposed to have a religious war with Gog and Magog. There's a fight here that's taking place. They're supposed to be brave. They are supposed to pull the army out with all the weapons that they have and all the weapons that Gog and Magog have. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, bring you out with your whole army, your horses, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Now it tells you whom Gog and Magog are. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, many nations with you. Did you read it? Which three initial nations are mentioned? Persia. Persia is with, or is Gog and Magog. What's the second one? Cush. If you want, you can press, you see there's a little C. Do you see the little C? Click it and it will tell you, or just go down, scroll down. What does C say? Upper Nile region. Where is the Nile? Egypt. And Put. I'm not saying it's Putin, but many people will tell you that they believe it's Putin. The one that's clearly identifiable is what? Persia. So they believe since that time of scripture, and by the way, if you study their courses on this, they believe that some believe it is an end of time Persia, and other scholars believe, as in Christian and Judaic scholars believe, that it's a constant battle with Persia. It's ongoing. If anyone wants the resources later on, feel free, I will send them to you. Some believe it is at end of times Persia, and some believe it is ongoing, that throughout history, sometimes Persia will be with them, and sometimes Persia will be against them. As Persia changes hands between kings and leaders and different armies and different countries, they will constantly either be with the Jews or against the Jews. I don't need to tell you that in the current space of Persia, it is interpreted that they are against the Jews. Now, what I'm trying to tell you, if you are understanding, is that if you are a Christian evangelical or a Zionist Jew, when you read this text, you believe that Gog and Magog come at the end of time and that they are on the side of evil. And in the scripture, it tells you whom is with Gog and Magog, or whom Gog and Magog are. And that is Persia. I don't need to draw the dots for you. I think you understand what is being said. That in today's current iteration of Persia, that is the Islamic Republic of Iran, and as a result, the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is a majority Shi'i country, is Gog and Magog. I shouldn't have to explain it, but just in case. And this is something that our friends from Christian communities and Judaic communities openly say and openly speak about. What you're being portrayed as here is on the side of Dajjal. And that there is a religious war that they are obligated to fight against Gog and Magog and against Persia. Many of you will always question, why do the Christian right support the state of Israel? Many people don't understand it. This is the reason. Because from the texts, they are supposed to be against Gog and Magog and any of its partners as well. Now, please turn to the next BibleGateway.com sequence that I asked you, which was Psalms. Which dua number? Number 83. Please open it and have a read with me. Do you all know what the Psalms is? What is the Psalms? What do we call it? The Zabur. So this is a book of dua, ad'iyah, that our Christian brethren recite on a regular basis in their churches, and it forms part of their belief system, and they take the aqa'id, the eschatology from it. The same way you and I, for example, will read Dua al-Iftitah, or the same way you and I will read, for example, Sahifa as-Sajjadiyah. They will read the Psalms. Have a read with me. Everybody has it? A song, a Psalm of Asaph. O God, do not remain silent, and do not turn a deaf ear, and do not stand aloof, O God. See how your enemies growl, how your foes rear their heads. With cunning they conspire against your people. They plot against those you cherish. Come, they say, let us destroy them as a nation so that Israel's name is remembered no more. Tell me, which nation do they normally associate with wanting the destruction of Israel? Persia. Correct? And which faith or which sect is the most outspoken or the most at the fore of stopping the advancement and the genocide and occupation of the state of Israel? Which one? School of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Carry on reading, verse number 5. With one mind they plot together. You see, lots of different nations that want to destroy Israel. With one mind they plot together. They form an alliance against you, God. Now, whom are these? Whom are these groups that form an alliance against you, God? The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab. Subhanallah. If you don't recognize that name, I don't know what to tell you. Who are the Ishmaelites? Which particular Arabs? Which particular Muslims? Ahsant. Who comes from Ishaq? And who comes from Ismail? Which prophet comes from the lineage of Ismail? Which one? Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. In their du'as, there is a du'a to say that the Ishmaelites are the ones who are going to be against Israel. Isn't it incredible? So obviously, who is it referring to? The Prophet. And those who follow the Prophet, what do they happen to be called? Muslims. Can you see in the previous text, who is Gog and Magog? Persians. In this text, who is against Israel? The Ishmaelites, who are the Muslims. If you are reading these two texts and you put them together, it is quite obvious to see, if you are an evangelical Christian or if you're a Zionist Jew, the way in which you read these texts, who is your enemy? Who do you have to go to war with? What is your policy going to be? This is serious business. The same way you believe your beliefs with respect, they also believe their beliefs. You have to understand, when policy makers are making these decisions in DC or in New York, where are they getting their vision from? Where are they getting their ideology from? It is from these very texts. Now, it should be sufficient for you to understand what is being said. But just in case, I'm going to read to you from a couple of websites of some of those groups, just so you see what they themselves say. Because you might say, fine, Jafar, you are reading the Psalms in this way. You are reading the Bible in this way and making your own conclusions. And that's unfair for you to put words in the mouth of others, right? So what we should do is let them speak for themselves. So I read to you from a website called foi.org. What is FOI? Thank you. Friends of? Friends of? No, no. Yeah. They're not friends of Islam, brother. After what they've I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. It's all good. It is Friends of Israel, foi.org. I'm reading to you from foi.org. So it's not me putting words in anyone else's mouth. We have to be fair and just and let them speak for themselves. The title of this article is called The Battle of Gog and Magog. I'm going to read part of it. The section is called When Will the Nations Invade Israel? The question remains as to the timing of this invasion. Several descriptions in these chapters in Ezekiel provide some insights as to when it occurs. The first includes time reference, quote, after many days in the latter years and in the latter days, 38:8, which best correspond to the prophetic description of consummation of God's dealings with Israel and the nations. This is yet to occur, so the battle is still future and would be best placed in the 70th week of Daniel 9:26-27, the great tribulation when God resumes the completion of his plan for Israel. The next part of it, why do the nations invade Israel? As much as this coalition of nations against Israel is pursuing its own purpose, Ezekiel reveals that God is controlling the situation for his own purpose. In summary, the battle of Gog and Magog is the future invasion by a coalition of nations, including Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, and Libya against Israel near the midpoint of the tribulation, motivated by acquisition of material wealth. The outcome is a devastating defeat for Israel's enemies by divine intervention, which exalts God as the true victor and safeguards God's people for spiritual blessings. And there are many, many other chapters, many other websites that will tell you exactly the same thing. All you would have to do is Google it for yourself. Who is Gog and Magog at the end times? Think about this very carefully. What is being spoken about you in many, many churches up and down this country? What is being spoken about you in many, many synagogues up and down this country? What is being spoken about is that there is a religious war that is in play, and part and parcel of that religious war requires an enemy. And the enemy is clearly stated within the texts. And as a result, many of them are drawing two and two and getting their own four. There is one more element to this. If Israel is the homeland of the Zionist Jews, why would Christians care so much to be able to help them? Christians and Jews have never got on in history. And in fact, whenever Christians have massacred Jews, the Jews have always sought refuge with the Muslims and have always found safety with the Muslims. That was true in 7th century Spain, and that was true in 1945 when hundreds of thousands of Jews had to flee Europe after their massacring by Christians across Europe. Where did they go? To Palestine. And in their own banners, they used to write on their ships, "We have no one else we can turn to except you, the Muslims of Palestine." So why would evangelical Christians help the Zionist Jews to create and establish the state of Israel? The answer is very simple. Evangelical Christians believe that there has to be a great war that takes place in Jerusalem, which brings about the end times. In order for Jesus Christ to return, there must be a great war. Do you know whom that great war must be between? Muslims and Jews. So when they are supporting Jews to come to Israel, to migrate to Israel, to occupy Israel, they're not doing it because they're like, "Oh, let me support you, let me be nice to you." They are actually inducing a world war. They believe that with this war brings about Jesus Christ, and when Jesus Christ comes, that brings about the rapture, and the Christians go to their paradise with Jesus. Can you see how all three Abrahamic faiths, with their various scriptures, the scriptures are talking about the same people, Gog and Magog, Dajjal and Antichrist, Isa alayhi salam and the awaited Savior. But our texts are saying something diametrically opposed. It's not like you can just go to them and say, "My dear friend from the church, my dear friend from the synagogue, don't believe what you believe." It's like them saying it to you, "My dear friend, don't believe in what the Quran says. Don't believe in what the Hadith says. You can't just let go of it, can you?" It doesn't work like that. So can you see? The way the scriptures talk about the same group of people is diametrically opposed. And if you are an evangelical type or an extremist type, even if you're a Muslim extremist type, the way in which you see those interpretations is through the lens of that extremism and the lens of that hate. It becomes almost impossible to diffuse that. But the real problem comes is that when it becomes policy in your country, the real problem comes when it becomes military policy in your country. Because many of the representatives of this country come from an evangelical background, don't they? The former vice president was one, as an example. At the very, very top of the state, let alone the billions in donations that go behind. What I want to do, I can't show you a solution. I can't say to you, "Here is the outcome, and what you have to do is this." All I can do is show you how the Quran expects us to be able to treat the Christians and the Jews, and the way in which we could try to forge better ties so long as we actually follow our own scriptures accordingly. So please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 3, Surah Al Imran, verse 110. Everybody has it? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best of people heralded for mankind. Why? Ta'maruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhawna 'anil munkar. Because you call towards good and you forbid evil. Now I want you to actually just be conscious with me. Make sure you're remembering these words. Ta'maruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar. What is the sign of being the best nation on earth? That you call towards good and you forbid evil. Okay, skip down to verse 113. Laysu sawa'an. They are not all the same. Jews and Christians, don't lump them into one group. Don't say they are all bad. Don't say that they are all hellbound. Don't say that they are all your enemies. Laysu sawa'an. They are not all the same. Min ahlil kitab. From amongst ahlil kitab. Ummatun qa'imatun yatluna ayatillahi ana al-layli wa hum yasjudun. From amongst Ahlul Kitab, from amongst the Jews and the Christians, there is an upright party. They recite God's communications in the night and they do sajda and they adore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse 114. يؤمنون بالله. They really believe in God. وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. And the day of judgment. وَيَعْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. The same way that the best of nations is created by people who do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. There are genuinely Christians and Jews that do that as well. They are not alike, all of them. There are outstanding people from amongst them. وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. And they hasten and strive with one another to do good deeds. وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And they are amongst the good doers. Verse 115. وَمَا يَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَلَنْ يُكْفَرُوهُ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُتَّقِينَ. And whatever good they do, the Christians and the Jews, Allah will not deny it from them. Allah knows those who are safeguarding against evil. Can you see? The Quran doesn't place Christians and Jews as enemies. It doesn't give us that narrative that maybe we are seeing from other faiths and from other sects. But at the same time, it tells you to be very, very careful and watch out for those people who are warmongers from amongst them. Please turn to chapter number 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 64. Everybody has it? Chapter number 5, verse number 64. Beginning of the ayah and then the very end of the ayah. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ يَدُ اللَّهِ مَغْلُولَةٌ. The Jews say, Allah's hand is shackled. He created us. He made us the favorites on earth. And now He doesn't do anything else. That's it. Look at the end of the verse. كُلَّمَا أَوْقَدُوا نَارًا لِلْحَرْبِ. Every time they kindle a fire of war, أَطْفَأَهَا Allah. Allah has to put out that fire of war. There are warmongers amongst them. Be very careful. Every time they kindle the fires of war, Allah has to intervene to be able to stop it. وَيَسْعُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. They strive to make mischief in the land. Allah does not love the mischief makers. Can you see? The Quran is telling you something very nuanced here. Amongst the Christians and Jews, there are outstanding human beings. Allah will not deny them their khair, their good. On the other side, there are some that are warmongers. They see the whole of their scripture through the lens of war. They constantly call towards war. You, as Muslims, as Shia, have to understand the game that is in front of you, the state of play that is in front of you, and which of those Christians and Jews are those that Allah praises, and which of those Allah is referring to as warmongers. I can't tell you any more than that. You know with your own capacity, with your own lobbying, with the Husseiniya that you have, that you need to be able to build bridges with those Christians and Jews that are like-minded, that Allah praises so well within the Quran, but you also have to be very wary and on defense of those who are warmongers, that are using policy to scapegoat you. Otherwise, we will not be able to change that world. The same way that there are divisions and misgivings and understandings between Muslims, there is the same amongst the sects between Christianity and Judaism as well. We know at the end of time, the alliance between Christians and Jews comes about. How? By the partnership of Isa alayhi salam and the awaited Savior Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-sharif. How many Christians are there in the world? More than 2 billion. 2.5 billion, maybe coming to 3 billion. Should we say 2.5 billion conservatively? How many Muslims? 2 billion? So what is that? A total of 4.5 billion. What's the total population of the earth at the moment? 7.2, 7.5 billion. Half the world, more than half the world is Christian and Muslim. At the end of time, it will be the unity between these two under the banner of the two awaiteds that will bring forth a change within this world. It doesn't happen overnight. The Christian communities need to have you from now starting that relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. From now they need to see your alliances. From now they need to see your goodness. And with a center like Al-Khoi Center in the middle of New York, it needs to be that the Shia community takes that lead and helps to be able to redress many of the misgivings and many of the policies that are coming from evangelical Christians. Who are you going to rely on doing that? So long as we have no engagement, serious, continuous, high level and ordinary level engagement with these groups, we will not be able to affect the policy within this country. Don't think about Washington. Don't think about DC. Think about what you in this local Husseiniya can do. Think about what you can do to make a change on the ground that actually filters further and further out. Understand what is being said about you and understand there needs to be a strategy in place that actually responds to it accordingly. Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam was given a title by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam that he was the most like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi in look and in character. My parting message on this is for you and I to become like the Prophet in character as well. So that if we're seriously going to make amendments and changes in this country at a socio-religious level, it has to come from the character that we have, from the insight and the leadership and the wisdom that we have. Imagine Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam reciting that adhan on the morning of the 10th of Muharram. I want to take you back for a moment to the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. It is said that Bilal al-Habashi refused to give the adhan after the attack on the house, lest it be seen as an endorsement of the khilafat of those who had stolen the leadership from Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Some commentators say that there was one time in which Bilal did recite the adhan. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam wanted to hear the adhan once more. Why? So that she could remember what it was like at the time of her father. It is said that she says to Bilal, "O Bilal, recite the adhan once more for me." When he begins to recite, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam maybe could still stand those words. But when he came to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hearing the name of the Prophet broke Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam, that she could not stand what it was being spoken to her, that this father of hers has been taken away, and with that opened the doors of such enmity against her. I want you to imagine then, when Ali al-Akbar recites his adhan on the morning of the 10th of Muharram, how does Sayyida Zainab and Sayyida Kulthum feel when they hear that adhan from the one that resembled the Prophet the most in his speech, in his look, and in his character? Can you imagine Zainab alayha salam remembering what it was like to be under the blanket of protection of her grandfather? And the same way Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam must have remembered what it was like under the protection of her grandfather. Can you imagine what was going through the hearts of Ahl al-Kisa and the remnants of Ahl al-Kisa in that moment? The poets say that when Ali al-Akbar came to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and said, "Allow me to enter into the battlefield," Imam allowed him immediately. He is the first of the shuhada from Al Muhammad to go on the 10th of Muharram. And because he is the eldest son of Imam, it is his duty to protect his father and lead the rest of Banu Hashim in their example. The poets say that when Ali al-Akbar comes to Imam al-Hussein and says, "Father, allow me to enter the battlefield," the poets say that he said to his son, "O Akbar, I allow you to go, but I want you to ask permission from your mother." It is said that Ali al-Akbar went to his mother Layla. She gave him permission. He came back and said, "My mother has given me permission." The poets say that Imam al-Hussein said, "I did not mean this mother of yours. Go and ask Zainab for permission, because she has looked after you like a mother since your birth. She has raised you in her own lap since your birth." Can you imagine Akbar going to Zainab alayha salam having to give permission to the one who looks most like her grandfather to go to the swords of Banu Umayyah? Zainab alayha salam gives that permission, and we are told that when Ali al-Akbar begins to leave the battlefield, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam walks behind him and follows him towards the battlefield. It is said that Akbar enters into the battlefield and kills many of the enemies. Our poets mention that the mother of Akbar is so hurt by this that she wants to be able to see her son once more, that she makes that famous line of dua where she says, "Oh Allah, you are the one who returned Yusuf back to Yaqub. Return my Yusuf back to me as well. I wish to be able to see my son for one last time." And with that, maybe it is said that Akbar returns back towards the tents. He comes back towards his father and says, "Oh father, is there any water that you could give? It is so killing me. The thirst is overcoming me." It is said that because the thirst is too much for Akbar, all he can do is take off his armor, which will ultimately leave his chest exposed to what is about to happen to him. We are told by our poets that as Akbar begins to enter into the battlefield at one last time, again Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is following him. The poets say that Akbar turns round and says, "Father, why are you following me into
to the battlefield. To which he says, "Oh Akbar, if you had a son like I have, if you had your own Akbar, you would not be asking me why I am following you. Oh Akbar, all I want is to be able to see your face for as long as I can, whenever you have chance to be able to look at me." Well, the poets say that whenever Akbar was fighting and whenever he would kill one of the enemies, he could look towards his father proudly to say, "Did you see what I am doing?" And his father would have a smile on his face. But there came a moment when that smile turned to terror in the eyes of Hussein, and the mother of Akbar is looking at the face of Imam al-Hussein. It has moved from being smiling and glowing to shuddering. What is it that Layla would have seen in the eyes of Hussein in those moments? We are told in the Maqtal that there is a man who said, "I will strike Akbar in such a way that I will make his father weep for him." They said to him, "What do you have with this young man? Leave him alone." He said, "No, I want to make Hussein suffer, and I want to see Hussein suffer." It is said that this man would hide behind one of the trees inside the plains of Karbala, not coming forward directly to Akbar, but as a coward hiding behind one of the trees, waiting for a moment to strike. It is said that Akbar would fight, and every moment this man holds a spear, waiting to be able to strike Ali al-Akbar. All of a sudden, as they surround Akbar, Akbar is fighting one way and towards the next. The man who is hiding behind the tree takes his spear and he rushes out from behind the tree and he thrusts it into the chest of Ali al-Akbar. Some of the poets say that he takes this spear and he lifts Akbar into the air and then throws him towards the ground. Akbar calls out, "Alayka minni salam," accept my final salutation. With this, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam falls towards the ground. He says, "Akbar, I have gone blind. I cannot see. Call out for your father so I may come towards you." It is said that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam crawls towards his son, and as he arrives there, he sees that there is a blade stuck inside the chest of Ali al-Akbar. What can Akbar say to his father? What can Imam al-Hussein say towards his son? You can imagine the moment he pulls out that blade, it is said that the blood of Akbar gushes all over the face of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He has to take the body of Akbar back towards the tents. As he is brought back, the women come out. They scream, "Wa Akbara! Wa Muhammada! Wa Aliya!" Look at what they have done to our precious Ali al-Akbar. It is said in the Maqtal that after the death of Qasim, Imam al-Hussein took the body of Qasim into the same tent. He sat down in between the two broken bodies. He placed one hand on the body of Akbar, one hand on the body of Qasim. He raised his head towards the sky and said, "Oh Allah, bear witness that they have taken my sons from me today."
ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence, tyrant Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence tyrant Zainab. Zainab, Zainab is the name of patience. Zainab, Zainab taught us for generations her father's will and her mother's fragrance. Kaaba of sorrows and lamentation. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 adornment of Ali Mawla, Zainab is the memory of Al-Zahra, her held high in the land of Karbala, for she was the daughter of Haydara. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence tyrant Zainab, 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 saw nothing but beauty. She saw Islam as the line of duty. She gave her all, wholehearted, truly, remaining firm in the face of cruelty. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence tyrant Zainab. Zainab, Zainab witnessed death and fire. Zainab stood firm and did what was required. Zainab, Zainab crumbled a whole empire. Her resistant words made oppressors retire. Zainab, 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 Zainab. Zainab, Zainab, eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silent siren Zainab, Zainab, Zainab was just like her father, Zainab, Zainab, treasured by her brothers, Hassan, Hussein, Abbas, and the others. Greater symbol for sisters and mothers, Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 witnessed death and fire. Zainab stood firm and did what was required. Zainab, Zainab crumbled the whole empire. Her resistant words made oppressors retire. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence tyrant Zainab, Zainab, Zainab saw nothing but beauty. She saw Islam as the line of duty. She gave her all, wholehearted, so truly, remaining firm in the face of cruelty. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence tyrant Zainab, Zainab, Zainab was just like her father, Zainab, Zainab, treasured by her brothers, Hassan, Hussein, and the Abbas others, greater symbol for sisters and mothers. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silent tyrant Zainab. Salawat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت فنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. وعلى جعل الله وأخلد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي يا مولاي يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين وأختك زينب أم كلثوم وبنت سكينة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الحادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل على ظهورك عجل على ظهورك يا ابن الحسن يا ابن الحسن. عجل على ظهورك عجل على ظهورك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.